This program is one of a series which accompanies the General Electric LM2500 work packages. This presentation contains the instructions for the replacement of the spark igniters and is designed as a supplement to the printed work package in the maintenance manual. There are two spark igniters on the LM2500 gas turbine. Aft looking forward, both are located on the lower right side of the compressor rear frame at the 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock positions. The replacement procedure is the same for each. In this demonstration, the igniter at the 4 o'clock position will be removed. Before beginning the removal procedure, it is vital that the ignition system cannot be energized. The output voltage of 15,000 to 20,000 volts from the ignition exciter is dangerous and can be lethal. Therefore, go to the exciter box and first disconnect the 115-volt AC input leads, and then the output ignition leads. Do not touch the center contact of the exciter output terminal, and make sure that the electrical jumper is in place on the exciter mounting bracket. Install the non-conductive protective caps over the input and the output terminals of the exciter box, and also over the 115-volt AC input lead connectors. Now the spark igniter can be replaced safely. After removing the safety wire, take a 1 1/4 inch open-end wrench and loosen the igniter lead nut. Be careful not to drop the spark igniter, because only the ignition lead coupling nut holds the spark igniter into the compressor rear frame. Gently withdraw the spark igniter with its gaskets from the combustor igniter hole and pull it out of the ignition lead socket. The removal of the spark igniter is complete. Whenever a new spark igniter is installed, the immersion depth must be determined. This is the depth at which the igniter will be placed into the combustor ignition hole, so that the tip of the spark igniter will protrude the appropriate distance into the combustor gas stream. If the igniter is installed too far in, the tip will burn away or its life expectancy will be shortened. If the tip is not in far enough, it will fail to ignite the fuel mixture during a start. Therefore, it is important that the proper immersion depth be determined. To demonstrate this procedure, the immersion depth gauge 1C6096 and a cutaway drawing of the compressor will be used. Insert the tool 1C6096 through the adapter hole and hook the tool onto the far inside aft edge of the combustion igniter hole. Lock the tool to this reading and remove it from the hole. This measurement is the distance from the outside flange of the adapter to the far inside aft edge of the combustor igniter hole and is expressed as dimension X. In this case, the depth gauge indicates 3 270,000 inches. Now take the new spark igniter and remove the gaskets from it. Notice that these gaskets are keyed to the igniter plug to prevent them from falling off of the plug. They are keyed by two flat surfaces 180 degrees apart on the spark igniter and by the flat section located on the inner ring of the gasket. To remove or install gaskets onto the igniter, slide the gasket up to the slotted ring, rotate the gasket 180 degrees until the other flat side of the igniter matches the gasket's flat side, and slide the gasket along the next section. After removing all of the gaskets, measure the igniter from its tip to the brazed-on gasket using a standard depth gauge. In this case, the gauge indicates 3 320,000 inches. Record this as dimension Y. Now there are two known quantities. dimension X, the depth of the combustor igniter hole, and dimension Y, the length of the spark igniter to be inserted into this hole. The igniter is longer than the hole is deep, so subtract dimension X from dimension Y to determine how much of the igniter is protruding beyond the edge of the hole. In this example, the resulting difference is 50 thousandths of an inch. The objective for the proper immersion depth is for the igniter to be recessed in this hole 30 to 70 thousandths of an inch from the inner combustor wall. When the minimum recession amount of 30 thousandths of an inch is added to the amount of current protrusion into the gas stream, 50 thousandths of an inch, the total is 80 thousandths of an inch, the distance that the igniter must move back out of the hole. This is achieved by adding gaskets to the spark igniter. Do not use more than 8 gaskets on one spark igniter. The thickness of a gasket is 32 thousandths of an inch, plus or minus 2 thousandths of an inch. To determine the proper number of gaskets to use, divide the distance that needs to be filled, 80 thousandths of an inch, by the thickness of a gasket, 32 thousandths of an inch. The answer is 2.5 gaskets. Therefore, use 3 gaskets in this case. Install the 3 gaskets onto the spark igniter and insert the igniter into the ignition lead. And the combustor hole. Then connect the ignition lead coupling nut. Torque the nut from 23 to 27 foot-pounds. Then install safety wire, securing the coupling nut to the 2 screws on the adapter boss of the compressor rear frame. Now it is safe to reconnect the ignition exciter. Remove the protective caps and reconnect the output ignition leads to the ignition exciter first. Torque the coupling nuts to 130 to 150 inch-pounds. Next, reattach the 115-volt AC input leads to the ignition exciter. Visually inspect the seal for breaks, nicks, tears, or other damage. If the seal is damaged, replace it with a new one. Hand tighten the couplings on the input leads and safety wire them to the box. The final step in the replacement of the spark igniter is to perform the spark igniter operation test as described in the operations section of the technical manual for the LM2500 engine. The replacement of the spark igniter on the LM2500 gas turbine is a simple procedure requiring little time and few tools. For a review of this procedure, refer to the maintenance manual for the General Electric Marine and Industrial LM2500 gas turbine.